What's good, everybody? It's your boy back with another reaction video, and I'll be reacting to what is this? Like I don't know what it is. Three more disturbing field trip horror stories. This is from mr.nightmare, so I'll put a link in the description down below, so you can go check out the original video. So go check out other videos on his channel. He has a really good channel, really good narration videos. So normally I like to call back to some experience I had when I watched it, if any. But all my field trips were pretty awesome, from what I can remember as a kid. I'm not one to block out like bad memories. So yeah, I don't remember having any bad situations. I remember one girl I had a crush on. I think I was in like first, second grade, something like that. We went to the shared aquarium in downtown Chicago, and it was an area where it was like, it was like, wait a minute, what they having it? It was like an area where it was like a play area where kids can go in. You can just, they had like different like, toys and different shit that you could just play in there. And I mean, well, wait a minute, was that the shared aquarium? Or am I getting that confused with the museum? It was a museum of science and industry. Maybe I'm getting that confused because I've been on field trips with that too. It was one of those fucking places, and I remember she like pulled me in the side, and she like basically like kissing me and saying she like I'm your girlfriend now. That's the only time. That's the like I almost forget that entire trip, except for that. Um, I remember sitting with some people. For some reason, it was like a couple girls. It seemed like they didn't like me, and I didn't know why. But very early on, when I was young, I stopped giving a fuck what people thought of me. So I was like, whatever. I don't know what their problem is. I didn't say anything about them or do anything to them. I was like, and I didn't think of like maybe somebody lied, which no one did. They were apparently a friend of mine told me later on when we went. I think we were in the fourth grade. That they liked me. So it was like right before I ended up leaving that school, going to another school. My fourth grade year. Yeah, 'cause I was only in my fourth grade year there for about 3, 4 months. Before I left and went to another school in a completely different area. So I left all my friends behind. But it wasn't the first time because I left another school. I did kindergarten and I was in first grade. And like, I think a little bit over halfway through my first grade, I went to another school way away. So I left all my friends. But anyway, we were at the, what's the name of that place? It's a zoo in Chicago. It's kind of a famous zoo. Is it Lincoln Park? I feel like I've been to that zoo as an adult, and I can't remember the name of it. It's not. No, not Lincoln Park. Is it Brookfield? I think is it Brookfield Zoo? Yeah, it's a popular zoo in um, uh, Illinois or in Chicago. And I remember sitting at a table. I just sat down. It was like a at the they had like a basically like almost like a cafeteria that people can eat. It was like they had like food, a bunch of food there, and you could sit outside, and we would go there during the spring, so it was nice out. So I remember sitting outside, and these three girls came up and sat down next to me, and all three of them seemed like dislike me from the beginning. And I don't know why. Since I think like I remember we had a first had our class together in like second grade or something, and they seemed to like just hate me for some reason. And I didn't know why, but then I remember sitting there talking, and I get very awkward, especially when I was a kid. So I try to make jokes or like say something that I think is funny or witty to kind of break up the awkwardness, or just say something. But I didn't want to say anything, just pointless. So I said, "Oh, if I say something funny, people laugh. That's better, right?" And I remember doing that, and we was constantly all laughing and stuff. And I still to this day, I don't really know why they didn't like me, but we was fine then. He was kind of friendly. Even that same year, we went to uh, a field trip to what was it? I think it was Discovery Zone, which is in Illinois as well. And they were cool. We was fine. We was playing. Everyone was playing together. Me and all our friends. So it was interesting. I was like, why? And I still was like, why did they have such a problem with me? But another friend of mine, he said, cause they liked you, cause I kept in touch with him even after I left that school and went to another school. I would come back, and cause my uh, dad still lived in that place, so I would come back visit him, and my best friend at that time was still living there, so I would see him. But anyway, let's get to this. That had nothing to do with anything, just besides field trips, because I don't really have a bad field trip story, especially nothing horror. The horror aspect of a field trip. But anyway, let's get into this. All right, here we go.
In 7th grade, we took an end-of-the-year field trip to an aquarium near school. It was called Ripley's Aquarium of the Smokies. We live in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, a literal mountain town, with nothing but hills and mountains as far as the eyes can see.
I
Our
think I
science
would love
teacher,
to live
Mr.
in a place
Russo,
like that.
was our
I've never
chaperone
lived
for
in
the
a place
trip.
with a bunch of
He was a
mountains
very lax teacher,
like that.
so while other teacher chaperones were more
I think I
uptight
would
and
love that,
strict with
especially
their
now
groups,
as an adult.
Mr. Russo was more chill about his job. That may seem like a good thing, but because of his lackadaisical approach at supervising, my friend Aiden and I were able to easily bail from the aquarium lobby away from the rest of the
My friend
groups.
Aiden and I were able
We
to be
quite simply didn't want to
assholes.
wait so long for all the groups to move. The whole aquarium was empty, except for our classes, so when Aiden and I walked through the passageways, or I guess observation areas as you would say, before everyone else, we didn't see anyone else. We got the best views at all the big fish tanks and habitats. We moved on to the next dark room, all of which were lit up with a dark blue tint from the fish tanks, by the way. This room had a lot of big tanks with tropical fish. We were making jokes about finding Nemo fish, like clownfish and the dory fish, and that's when I remember someone calling "hey" to us in a very assertive, commanding voice.
Yes, pedophile.
It was some guy in cargo shorts and a green
kids
t-shirt.
on a field trip.
He asked us if we were with the field trip.
Or
I was
ghost.
about to shake my head no, but Aiden said yes. The man told us to come with him right now. We both assumed he worked for the aquarium, so we followed. He wasn't leading us back to the lobby, though. He was leading us through some narrow, dark hallways. I remember passing the bathrooms and a few exit signs hanging on the ceiling before reaching an exit door. He led us outside to some back area, I guess by the woods.
Oh boy.
I finally asked if he worked there and where he was leading us. He said yes, he did work there, and that he had to drive us back around to the front of the aquarium in order to be let back in.
That makes no sense.
It made just as much sense back then as it does now. But we were two nervous 7th graders who thought we were about to get in serious trouble.
7th grade, I've been like,
so when he led us to his car, we willingly got in the back seats. He told us to strap in, and he pulled out from the back parking lot and onto the street.
Oh my god.
Just as we thought he was going to make a right turn towards the front, he turned left. Right away, both Aiden and I asked him where he was going at the same time.
You should have
He
kicked
didn't
him
answer
in the
that question,
fucking head.
but about 5 seconds later, we heard the locks to the back doors click down, and he made some kind of threat along the lines of, that to slide out what appeared to be a big knife in his glove. He was driving us uphill through some woodsy, isolated neighborhood
Oh
until he
my
finally pulled over onto
God.
the side of the road in what appeared to be the middle of nowhere. No houses, no through traffic. He told us to stay in the car as he got out, with his knife in his hand. I whispered to Aiden to be prepared to run as soon as I said to. The man came to my door, popped it open, and told me to step out.
Oh,
He told me to tell my friend that if he wants me alive,
this is as
he
good as
better be in the
place as
car
any
by
to
the
rape
time we
you.
got back. I felt a deepening feeling in my stomach when I heard that. The man started walking me to the woods with the knife probably in his pocket, to do God knows what.
To rape you.
I saw Aiden sliding over to my side of the car, which had an unlocked door, and when he seemed ready to run, I screamed, "Run!" Aiden was off already, running downhill. I easily dodged the man as I fled past him, following Aiden. The man tried chasing us on foot, and I'm not even kidding when I say he threw the knife at me. He missed with only maybe a few inches to spare. I heard the clanging of the knife hitting the ground ahead of me. I didn't stop to pick it up. I just kept running downhill in the direction we came. The man stopped following after throwing the knife. I think he got back in his car and fled the scene. We somehow managed to make it back to the aquarium in under an hour, and we also managed to sneak back into the group. Mr. Russo didn't even notice.
The Russo sucks.
Aiden and I decided to keep quiet about what just happened. What purpose would it serve
I
getting
can see having
ourselves
a
in trouble, given that there
lackadaisical,
was relatively no chance of
approach,
that man getting
but
caught?
sheesh.
As we got older, we started to wonder more and more what the intentions of that man were.
What is with that
I could
house
obviously
up
think
there
of a few
on the
likely
top of
ones,
that
but either
hill?
way, we kept quiet about it and don't really
Mountain,
like
I
to think
say.
about it.
Y'all almost got fucked. Literally. Like he was gonna fuck you, then kill you, and then go get your friend and bring him out there.
When I was in 8th grade, all of my classmates and I looked forward to our Washington, D.C. field trip. The thrill of going on any sort of trip with your friends was enough to excite us. After all preparations, we were ready for D.C. Once we arrived to our destination, my class of around 100 students were partitioned off into 3 groups, and within these groups were our 3 other hotel mates. Each group was sent off in different coach buses, and we would be taken to different attractions throughout DC, neighboring states, monuments, parks, food stops, museums, and more. After a long weekend of visiting educational sites, our teachers decided to treat us to a colonial ghost tour one night. It was an evening walking tour through some of America's historical sites near village cemeteries and old townhomes. I don't remember exactly which city we were in, but I remember the guides telling us that many of the empty homes were preserved due to their historical significance. I've always been scared of most things related to ghosts and such, and I was positive that nothing would happen in our ghost tour. We split off into smaller groups of around 10 members each, and were instructed to carry around a camera if we wished. The guide kept telling us not to expect much from the tour, that there would most likely be nothing supernatural during the
Why would
course
the
of the
guy
evening.
say that? The whole point is for people to come here.
As we wandered from
don't worry,
colonial
nothing's
home
gonna
to
happen.
cemetery plot to colonial home, I just took interest in the
Especially
histories
a
that the
ghost
guide would
tour.
share of each home. They would indulge us in the stories of each homeowner, while my friends would snap away at photos, hoping to find a shiny orb. One of my friends, Jessica, that I was sharing a room with during that trip, was not one of the kids that were constantly taking pictures. She would take a photograph every once in a while, but spent most of the time listening. My group reached a small 2-story home in the middle of the street. The house had an ominous blue hue to the windows, but the house was vacant. I remember being very curious about this home. The tour guide began to tell us a little bit about the house. She had mentioned that the home had originally belonged to a man and his beautiful wife. He adored his wife, and the couple was thrilled to receive news that they would be expecting a child. Unfortunately, the wife had died after giving birth to a baby girl. The man was absolutely devastated and grew to resent his homely daughter. During her childhood, he kept her in the house as much as he could. He reminded her about how homely she looked and could not find her a suitor.
Damn.
Feeling that she had no other purpose,
You
he had his
ugly.
daughter learn how to sew and weave upstairs, using her only good attribute, her hands.
No one ever want to marry you.
After hearing this story, I remember the sorrow that I felt for this girl. She and her father must have lived unhappily in that house until their deaths. My friend Jessica took a photograph of the house, and we both moved on to the next house. I kept walking until Jessica stopped and became silent. looking down in her digital camera screen. I walked over and scanned the photograph. I saw a gleam coming from the edge of the second floor window on the right. I
I
had
was
her
looking, I
zoom
was
on the
like,
scene.
what is that?
After zooming in, we
Zooming
could
in,
clearly
somebody
see
like,
3 figures staring out from the window. On the way right was the translucent outline of a woman. A taller man was standing behind her to the side. Even more curiously, there was a third figure. It appeared to be a woman, but she was harder to make out. The body was there for sure,
is
but
it
her
a
skin
third
was not
figure?
as
I only
clear.
see two.
Jessica and I freaked out. The first woman and man made
I
sense to
guess
me.
it
That would
kind of look
explain the
like a
man
third
and his
figure.
daughter. But who was this
See
third
two.
dark woman off the side?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking
I
at.
raised my hand and had to ask the guide, was there ever another person that lived with this family at the house we just looked at? The guide looked surprised at my question and answered, yeah. During the time of their residence, they had a black female servant living with them.
And they killed her and buried her with them so they could have her in the afterlife serving them.
Senior year of high school. My forensics teacher, Mr. Stevenson, somehow convinced the school to let him take us on a field trip to some abandoned building in the woods that was the site of a major crime scene.
What?
I think he might have finessed it a bit and made the school think we'd just be studying the perimeter
Yeah,
and
he
outside
lied.
of the building.
He definitely
But
lied.
we did much more than that. Mainly, it used to be a drug
Because
den.
that man, who would agree to that?
When we got there, I realized how frighteningly tall the building actually was.
What the fuck
And
is
its
with this
location was
building? Why is
just
it angled
surreal,
like that?
surrounded by forest in every direction, and the only
even
road
look
that
right.
leads up to it is a road you would never think to drive down just because of the grass growing in the street.
I think this building.
Since our current topic at the time of our class was dealing with
this
drugs,
picture.
Mr.
It was like,
Stevenson led us
it
into
only
the
went up to
abandoned
that
building.
level, and then they photoshopped.
He
it,
gave a
but
tour of the
they didn't do it
place as
right.
if he'd been there many times before, and he seemed to know quite a bit of history about the building. For example, that the actual original purpose of the building was unknown. Apparently, construction on the higher levels wasn't even finished before the building was abandoned. Its location and size made it ideal for drug deals and other illegal activity to take place, which surprised all of us since there we were, inside of this apparent former drug den for a school field trip.
Why?
Mr. Stevenson was so laxed about this trip that he didn't even notice when a couple students wandered off to explore on their
Mr.
own.
Stevenson looking for
Or maybe he just
dealer.
didn't care. Given that a few other students did it, me and my
What the
friend
fuck does this
Gianna,
have to
or
just
G,
go in here and
decided
have
to
to do
go
with
off on our own
curriculum?
too. And yes, I'm a guy. I just so happened to have a really close friend that was a girl back in high school. There had to be at least 8 floors in this building, but we saw from the outside the top few floors looked unfinished. I basically forced G to come all the way upstairs with me to the top few floors.
Help me.
Worst came to worst, we wouldn't be able to find the group again, and we just returned to the bus right outside. We climbed the stairs, one flight after another. It was weird. As we reached the middle floors, the amount of debris and graffiti lessened a bit, but then as we got to the higher floors, there was even more graffiti and litter than the lower floors. Then things got sketchy. It seemed we were on the second highest floor, and everything on this floor was still just wood foundation. A lot of it seemed to be rotting, and there were a lot of holes up there. We would have gone up to the last floor, but the stairs had been completely stripped and broken. Basically, there were no stairs to the last floor. There had to be a way up there, though. So we watched our step for weak wood as we navigated the floor.
There we gotta find a
Then
way up
Gianna
there.
grabbed my shoulder and stopped me. She pointed up at a hole in the ceiling and said she saw something. Then there was a ticking noise, like the kind of ticking noise a person makes when they're calling their cat or something. Followed by that, someone's arm came into view from the hole above us.
Oh.
Just their arm, though. And judging by the position of the arm, whoever's arm it was must have been laying down flat on the floor beside the hole. They had a long black sleeve on, so the only skin that was visible was their hand. G was scared. I laughed a little at first, but I'm not going to say it wasn't slightly unnerving.
Fuck with you, laugh. Oh, maybe he's nervous.
Gianna started telling me, let's go back down. I started calling up to the person, how do we get up there? They didn't answer.
What?
Instead, they just kept making the ticking noise and waving us up.
You dumb.
That's when things started getting really creepy.
Oh,
And I
that's
agreed
what
with G
started.
that we should go back down. Right after I said this, the person pulled their arm out from the hole, and we heard the sound of a shoe quickly scrape the wood foundation above us, as the person was clearly getting up. We couldn't see though. I nudged Gianna to move. I was creeped out and just wanted to get back down. As we were about to leave the main open layout room and back into the stairway corridor,
Your teacher's a
there was a crash
dumbass.
far behind us. We turned and
Oh,
saw
he
a man
jumped
on the
down.
complete opposite side of the room, facing the wall. It seemed he just jumped through one of the holes. He then quickly turned his head to look at us, without moving his body. There was something about his face and clothing. He didn't look like the typical urban exploration type. He looked dangerous and unstable. G and I ran for it now, down one flight of stairs at a time. 3 flights down, I looked up the long corridor above us and saw the man at top looking down at me. I yelled go to Gianna. We kept going down. Like 5 flights later, I looked up
It's
again,
probably
and
just
there
some
was the man
homeless
again,
person
looking
fucking
down at
with you.
me.
Or
This time
maybe
he
he
seemed much
has
closer,
a mental
and
illness.
I just realized he'd been chasing us. We got to the bottom, and I looked up one more time, and I didn't see him this time. We heard the voice of Mr. Stevenson nearby, and I kind of started to laugh about what just happened. Not exactly because I found it funny, but
Yeah,
because I
like
was just happy that we made it back safely.
I mean, I'd be
She was not
hysterical, I
laughing,
guess.
though. She was genuinely disturbed.
You should
We
be.
found Mr. Stevenson, who asked where we were, and we told the truth about what just happened. He was pretty mad at us, but given what we just told him, he also advised we should leave the building.
You shouldn't
The
have
other kids who
fucking
wandered
came
off
here.
had returned, and when we got to the bus, Mr. Stevenson did a head count like 3
Let me guess,
times.
somebody's missing.
Overall, the trip wasn't a failure for the
Oh,
rest.
okay, no one's missing. I was
The
like,
other kids
someone's
did learn
missing.
things about the building and drugs, but for my friend Gianna and I, really, it was the most horrific thing we ever went through.
Mr. Stevenson sound like either a recovering drug addict, because you learned about the building and drugs. Like, what the fuck was the point of this field trip? Like, I don't even get. Is that it? I think that's it, because I should have went to the. Yeah, that's it. Like, why would you go to a abandoned building that has seemed like that had no historical significance other than just being a random ass building that people started selling drugs in because it was big in a location? Like, it's almost like the teacher. Like, if you don't have your like lesson plan done as a teacher for the next day or maybe the week or something like that of the next week, because I had teachers like that where they be sitting there doing a lesson plan or finishing it, and they'd be, oh, you know what, today we're going to watch a movie, or y'all can just do she would just write up in the sign real quick, or she'd be like, read ahead and then do the review questions or some shit. But this motherfucker's like, he went, I'm guessing he had to go to the principal or something and got them to sign off on a field trip. Like, I'm assuming he lied about this, because it's like, why would they sign off on going to a fucking abandoned building, some random ass abandoned building with no like historical significance, nothing. It's not like they go into a a science lab, like it was a science class. They go into a lab or something like that. No, it's just some random ass building. Don't even know what the fuck was there previously. But then now people sell drugs, or used to sell drugs. So like, what was the point? Like he of course he think he lied or finessed and said, hey, they be doing this, and he was full of shit. But you put your kids at risk. Like, you don't know if there's still junkies in there. You don't know if homeless people in there. You don't know if it's drug dealers in there. You don't know nothing. You just take them up in there. And like he said, he knew of. He said they learned stories about drugs and I guess some history of the building. Well, like I said, is it significant to the curriculum or any school curriculum? Like what the fuck? It did. Like, what are your teachers talking about drugs? Like, what? Teacher need his ass kicked and then fired. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, I never had anything. I mean, I've had teachers that were kind of lackadaisical when we went on field trips and people kind of, branch out and do their thing. They always just say, hey, at this time we're meeting for lunch. So they know, they tell us, like, because they always had signs wherever we went. So, like, we going to meet at the food court or something like that, or the cafeteria or whatever. So they're like, meet here at 11 for lunch. And then the teacher gonna do a head count then to make sure that they got everybody. And then, yeah, when we branch off again, some people you can stay with the teacher if you want. Others you can branch off, do your own thing. They say, hey, we gonna be at the bus at 2 or something like that, or 2:30. So how you ask at the bus, and we're gonna do another head count before we leave. Make sure everyone's there. Or we're gonna have to wait, or the teacher would go off if they didn't show up and go off and get them, But this teacher's a fucking idiot. Anyway, hope y'all enjoyed my reaction to one. If you did, make sure you hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. Hit that bell. You want me notified when I upload new videos. Comment down below. Share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.